With Postmortem. The movie I'm looking at today is Tron Legacy. A good movie, but not a great movie. And the reason being, I'm a huge fan of 1975's Tron. And for me, it was such an innovative, a visually spectacular movie. The story wasn't that strong, admittedly, but it had a almost fairy tale type of feel to it. The story was relatively simple. Man, sucked into a computer, enters a whole new world, and that's nothing we haven't seen before. The scenery may change, but the idea is not new. It's essentially Alice in Wonderland, but the visuals that Tron presented were just so unique for its time, so innovative. And the interesting thing is, though, the visuals for Tron are for the most part not CG. It was the introduction of computer graphics into motion pictures, essentially. But I should say, less the introduction and the most extensive use of computer graphics in motion pictures at that time. But the thing is, most of Tron is actually not computer graphics. Most of Tron is just, it's like animation actually, in that you have cells that were originally in black and white and they were painted in color. So as the images I'm showing you illustrate, it wasn't for the most part a computer generated movie. There were aspects of it that were computer generated. The tanks, the light cycles, things like that. The logic probe, so awesome. So on a whole, computer-generated content of Tron is really not that high. But again, keep in mind, we're talking the 1970s, so there was essentially nothing like it. And its whole look, to me, harkened back to black and white silent film. It just had that bleached out look to it, which was just so interesting to see. The problem with I should mention, Tron also had a sense of humor. I earlier was talking about how simple the story, relatively speaking, is. And it has a sense of humor that accompanies it. It's kind of cute, and for all ages. It's not an adult movie by any stretch, nor is it a kid movie. Less based on its content than simply that if you look beyond the visuals, there's not a heck of a lot there. But as it was assembled, it's a very engrossing, visually sumptuous movie. The reboot, directed by Joe Kosinski, never really takes advantage of some of those elements. It's technically proficient, to be sure. I mean, CGI has advanced to such a state, though still, the CGI content isn't actually that high, really, in that a lot of it is accents, more so than full CGI. The uniforms are practical uniforms, which is neat. It looks better. The animation, being that they're actually not animated, it looks better than what we see in the earlier movie, which is to be expected. Everything looks richer. The recognizers, the light cycles, everything looks richer. But the story is more complex. And in that complexity, something is lost. There's a certain joylessness to Tron Legacy, which I think has a lot to do with the director, but also a lot to do with the writers. They just didn't capture what made Tron Tron. Another thing is that in the original movie, there was a literalness to the programs in the computer world. I mean, there's RAM.
I was an actuarial program. Worked for a big insurance company. It really gives you a great feeling helping folks plan for their future needs.
And there were those analogies from the program to the real world. Everyone had a function. It wasn't random in a sense of computer characters existing just for computer characters. There are computer characters who played a role in what we do every day. In Tron Legacy, that's kind of forgotten. The story takes place in a computer world which has been cut off from the internet. So in this instance, unlike with the first Tron, it developed all on its own, an island, if you will. So it's unique, but at the same time, it doesn't really make sense because nothing really serves. It exists in and of itself in the movie, in Tron Legacy, I should say, which it didn't in Tron. It's not a great thing. Tron also had religious overtones to it, which was interesting in that users were almost gods in us. They were thought to be gods in the sense that they were never seen, and they made all that Tron revealed. The movie revealed, not Tron the character, played by Bruce Boxleitner. So there were these not significant, they weren't like Zack Snyderized religious elements, but nonetheless significant religious elements to Tron, which made it so interesting. This Tron Legacy, none of it. So it feels to me like a colder movie. Ironically enough, despite having a more complicated story, a movie that lacks depth. So that's just not, it makes it feel to me less engaging. Another thing about Tron Legacy is that there seems to be this effort to bring Tron into the real world. In Tron Legacy, part of the plot was Clue, I was going to say Sark. Clue was reappropriating programs to use as an invasion force with the purpose of invading the real world. Why? Reason being, all the movie would look like would be a superhero film. You see disc warriors fighting in the street and fighting the army. We've seen that before. Well, not exactly, but you've seen the Avengers, you've seen, let's say, the Justice League. You haven't seen that yet, but you've seen superhero films. What that sounds like to me is just a superhero film. Tron has levels to it, and that doesn't help them. The movie, I think, would be better served by staying in the computer world, exploring that space, understanding that space better, even bringing back some of the humor of the first movie would have benefited it immensely. There's talk of a reboot of Tron as well. I don't know if Joseph Kosinski would be behind it, but it would star Jared Leto, who played Joker in Suicide Squad, as a new character. I mean, I don't know how that would go personally. And I don't know if it would really add to what Tron is, other than to give a starring vehicle to Jared Leto. And that's pretty much rumor at this point. Tron Legacy is a beautiful movie, but on the whole, it lacks the heart, the humor, the innocence of Tron. And so it's interesting visually, but it will always, in my mind, be a pale copy of the original. This is Brian from ScreenFiles.com with Postmortem. Peace.